All right. Let's make sure everything's good here. Ugh. Should check my audio before we get too involved. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Isometric maps. Yes, isometric maps. This is, I'll cover this in a second. Just making sure that my audio is playing. Sounds like it is. All right. So yeah, isometrics maps. This is a couple of demos that I was putting together. Decided to put them all together into one thing. I messed it up by putting it not full screen. Let's get rid of that audio there. So it's a little bit messy to play in a small window because it's supposed to be full screened over here on my Retina display. But we've got 8-direction character movement currently, a dashing effect. You can see that the isometric map is not like properly set up. So we can walk behind this little thing on the ground. We can walk behind the wall on the left here. Like we can walk over the wall to get to the second floor. But you can see this wall is kind of placed in the right spot, so we can walk behind it. And then we're behind these stairs as well. So plenty of stuff to do. Not really sure where I'm going to take this. But first thing I need to do for this is camera movement so that we can see the rest of the level. So thinking we're going to start there. Hello, Proton. Hello, Martin. Hello, Rubby. I don't know if that was earlier than the stream started, but hello. Just getting into Rust, need to gain interest somehow. Intend to use gaming or GNOME dev to get in. Cool. Yeah, Bevy's really cool. I have a lot of fun writing Bevy code. And it's also, in my opinion, quite nice for learning Rust. Although you do have to deal with, like a second domain, right? Like if you don't know anything about game programming, you may have to learn something about math or whatever. But I find it really nice to write these for like really small systems, query some stuff, ask for what we want. And then you don't really have to deal with as much program architecture, if that makes sense. You don't have to deal with as much of the references and things like that. The things that people kind of get tripped up on for the first time. So this is a whole bunch of stuff. I've got this like custom Bevy ECS tiled implementation here. It is partially copied from the Bevy ECS tile map example. Hello, hello, Benmo. Or Benno, yeah. So there's this Bevy ECS tile map. Bevy ECS tile map is what I use for 2D maps. Usually I'm using LDTK. This time, because it's isometric, we need to use tiled because LDTK doesn't support this diamond shaped isometric. Yeah, you don't deal with async code also? Yes. Yes. So like writing Rust code inside of Bevy means that you don't have to deal with a lot of the like things that are going to get you into a situation where you don't know how you're going to get out. I know Rust well enough, but I don't know game dev. Is this easy to use? I've been interested in Unreal Engine 5. If you're interested in Unreal Engine 5, I would ask what kind of game you're going to build, basically. Because I will say that Bevy is fairly easy to use. It does, like the ECS pattern might not fit into your head quite immediately. But I do think in the grand scheme of things, if you already know Rust, you'll be able to pick up the ECS pattern fairly quickly. That said, if you're planning to ship something like to consoles or whatever, like Bevy isn't going to help you do that, but Unreal probably would. So that's really the, like, if you want to use Rust and build a game, Bevy's great. If you want to build certain kinds of games, Bevy is great for shipping them. If you want to build things for consoles, or perhaps like high-end, heavy, like 3D, nanite-based experiences, like Unreal Engine is way better for that at the moment. Let's see. We need to build a camera system. Do we build a camera system or do we steal the one from Bevy ECS LDDK? So in the examples here, there's helpers, and they have a camera system here. It looks like it's just keyboard directional input translated directly into camera movement, which isn't what I want, because we have keyboard directional input going towards the character that runs around on screen. So I want to associate our camera movement with the player itself. So maybe I'll grab this and modify it. Hello, son of a beach. So I think we'll put this in our main app. I've got a couple of crates here. I've set this up as a workspace. So it's a little bit more complicated than your average kind of like Rust app or whatever, just because I have a couple different crates that I'm putting stuff in. I specifically wanted to separate out all of the start menu code from the core game logic, or like everything else that I'm working on, because sometimes I want to like not run the start menu. So putting it into a plugin and a separate crate made a lot of sense. So let's go into our core crate here, and I'm going to do something like pubmod camera. This is going to create a file at camera.rs that I'm going to go into. I'm just going to paste this code in right here. This is not really going to do anything for us yet. I don't think we're going to use keyboard input here. Ooh, they implemented zoom, I think, in this. That's interesting. So maybe we'll keep that around for a second. They've got a minimum ortho scale there. That's cool. So here we don't want to we don't want to allow dead code. This is actually going to be used. Let's call this what, camera? I don't know, behavior. So we've got time. Time is the resource for like time since the program started and things like that. Keyboard input is not something we're going to need right now. If we do, I'm probably going to put that into Leafwing Input Manager. So we need to query for the transform. I think we might get rid of the orthographic projection, but I'm going to keep it around for a second. So we're looking for the transform of the camera. We also need the transform of our player. Oop, that didn't get rid of camera. So I'm querying for any transforms, so any entities with a transform or orthographic projection component, big words today, too early, with the player component or with the camera component. So in this case, we're going to get rid of the orthographic projection because our player doesn't have one. And that should work. And then we'll get for the transform of the camera. I don't think direction really matters to us right now. Let's get rid of all of this for the moment. And let's do transform. This will only be one player, so I'm going to do a single at the top just to make it easy. Let player equals query player.single. transform.translation is the XYZ coordinates. .x equals player.translation.x. So we're going to do no smoothing to start off with. Just going to exactly lock to the player. Player.translation.y. And that should be enough for us for the moment. We don't need this to be mutable because we're not modifying the player. Cool. What development patterns and or crates would you recommend for building multiplayer games in Bevy? There's a couple of networking crates. Lightyear gets constant updates. There's another one that somebody is using for a game called To Build a Home called Bevy Replicon. I don't know that I would necessarily suggest any of them. There's also Matchbox and a new higher level crate on top of Matchbox that I forget the name of. But it depends on what kind of networking you want to do. It depends on what kind of stuff you want to build. So yeah, Bevy Replicon is one option. Lightyear is another. Matchbox is peer-to-peer. There's another crate that's a higher level on top of Matchbox that I'm forgetting the name of, that hopefully is mentioned, I don't know, in this... Actually, you know where it would be mentioned? On This Week in Bevy from last week. It's Bevy RTC. Using my own site to find out information about things that I want to talk about. Wonderful. Love it. So Bevy RTC is another one. But yeah, there's a lot of options. You're going to want to look into them, see which one fits you. You've inspired me to try Bevy, and sometimes when I run it from VS Code, it crashes all apps. It was crashed my video driver. I've never had that issue, unfortunately. Hey, Julian, how's it going? Do you use some editor to make maps, or Bevy has some editor we can make setup easy? You have to use a third-party editor. Bevy does not have a UI currently. So for 2D, your options are tiled, which is this. Or LDTK, which I quite like LDTK. LDTK is, I would dare to say, fun to use. I think I liked LDTK a lot more than tiled, but LDTK doesn't support isometric maps. So we have to use tiled today. For 3D, it gets a little bit harder. I've been using Blender for 3D stuff. So there's this integration and like Python script plugin called Blender Bevy Components Workflow, and it lets you like add components inside of Blender and then export all of that to Bevy. It's a little bit more setup than something like Godot, but Bevy doesn't have an editor yet, even though people are working on it. Hey, thanks for coming through, Baron. Why aren't my streams saved on my channel? It should be there. They should be on the live stream page, right? Like if you click live here, they should just be here. So if they're not there, then I guess let me know and I'll check the stuff. What am I doing? We're doing, right now we're answering chat because chat is coming in fast. But we're doing a camera for a 2D isometric level. This is kind of just a sample level that I've put together / copped from Kenny. So the assets that I'm using here are Kenny related assets. I don't know if this one is on the website. I think it's this. So I'm using a subset of this to build out the isometric map. We're only using like a couple of the pieces. We're not using all of them. Let's see. Rust Rover, yeah. Does Unity technically support any language you want? I don't know the answer to that, actually. Blender is Python with a GUI. Yeah, that's fair. I wrote some Python scripting of my own recently, and it does feel like Python with a GUI. I haven't made any games in Bevy yet. Only checked it out a little bit. Any suggestions for a game to make that works great to learn Bevy features? Yeah, we did asteroids over the last couple weeks. That should be on the channel under the live stuff. Anything simple, anything, 2048, Snake, anything that would like play on an Atari system or an arcade cabinet is usually pretty good. I prefer to start with simple things and work my way up. I thought I read somewhere that Unreal also supports other languages and frameworks. I don't know the full answer to that. I do know that they have other languages in mind, like Verse and whatnot. Serious inspiration. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. There's a tab with streams. Yes, there's a live tab now on YouTube. So if you are looking for rebuild Factorio and Bevy, that is not something I'm planning on doing right now. Get my control back over here on the right computer. Flappy Bird game, yeah. Flappy Bird is pretty good. And there's collision detection inside of Bevy these days, so you can do that without any plugins, I think. I'm using Kenny at the moment as well. Yeah, Kenny's great. I sincerely appreciate the amount of assets that they put out that are usable in things like open source software and educational content and things like that. Things that I don't really have to worry about using, right? Because like I can use this, it can be on stream, I can show you all later. And I don't have to like worry about the licensing or whatever. The lack of mushrooms. Free asset place to come in GLTF prepackaging. I just look on itch right now. There's a bunch of places and stuff to look for assets. I mostly do things that are open source, so I try to make sure that what I'm using is licensed appropriately. But my first look right now would be like mushroom on itch. And I don't know if there's going to be any here, but I don't know what kind you're looking for either. Hey Miner, how's it going? Does something simple. Rebuilds Minecraft and custom voxel engine in Bevy. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we've got our camera behavior. We need to take this and put it somewhere. We could put this in our own plugin and call this a camera plugin. I assume that we're going to get more like behavior here. So I actually think I am going to put it in a camera plugin. So I'm going to implement plugin. Oh, I didn't implement the Prelude, did I? For camera plugin. Implement missing members with Rust Analyzer to get it to write it for me, and then app.add systems update, and then camera behavior. And we want to run if in state, what do we call this? App state in game. And then I need to bring app state into scope. We don't want to return that value, so add a semicolon on the end. Semicolons are actually important. Blender is mostly written in C and C++, embeds a Python interpreter for scripting. True. True, but the way I feel like I interact with it is either GUI or Python scripts. Hey, BA, how's it going? It's my first game. I want to make an open world MMO RPG on a custom voxel engine. Yeah, I think it's very, 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 very easy to get yourself into the trap of I want to build, the game I want to build and not just finish something. So let's see. We're going to make this pub because we're going to use it. If I didn't disconnect my keyboard accidentally. There we go. Let that be a lesson. Don't disconnect your keyboard when you're trying to do things. Okay, so camera plugin is going to go in here. We got to bring that into scope. I'm going to use Rust Analyzer to do that. IV camera plugin. We aren't modifying any of the default plugins, so I'm comfortable bringing that in. This does have the same name as something in the Bevy plugin group. So if we wanted to set things in the camera plugin up here, I would have to qualify this. But that's fine. I like Rust's implicit returns for writing, but not for reading. That's fair. Plenty of things are good for writing and not for reading. Regex is good for writing and not for reading. All right. Camera behavior accesses transform in a way that conflicts with... Yep, okay. That makes sense. So the way that I've written this, I thought this was going to happen, but I wasn't seeing any errors in my editor. So we're going to do without player here. So basically the issue that we just ran into is we're querying for this transform component, right? We're querying for all transform components. Actually, that is the camera system, right? Yes. So we're just making these exclusive groups, basically, of transforms. What do I think of Cloudflare workers supporting Rust? Don't they just support WASM? I don't think they actually support Rust, do they? So now we've got a moving camera and about, a couple lines of code. It's not the best camera. It's not something that I think people would be excited to use. We need to lerp some stuff around for sure. I don't know if I'm going to do that right now. We also don't have bounds on the camera, so the camera goes everywhere. But it lets us walk around this little map here. I've definitely got Z index ordering issues. I think I'm going to fix those another time. Maybe we'll do some collision today. That would be cool. Any thoughts on game dev and Zig? I have no thoughts on game dev and Zig. I don't use Zig, so I don't have opinions. Okay, so we've got that. We could continually lerp it. I think we have Bevy Tweening in here already for the start menu. So we do. So we could add some lerping to the camera. Probably a good idea just to have something. Start menu. How do we use this in here? Let's go. I don't think we use ease2. This is the one with the tweens, right? There's a couple of different tween libraries. Tween libraries tend to be like easy for people to write. So they end up writing a bunch of them. So here's our tween. We need to insert this component if we're going to get that tween to work. This is probably not the right tween to use. And we would need the entity as well. Where's the entity? So we need to get the entity ID if we're going to insert a component onto this. We are going to do commands.entity, which we haven't destructured yet. And then we're going to insert this animator component. And this is going to handle our tweening for us, basically. So commands and entity are things we need. Right at the top, we'll do mute commands, asking for this from the arguments. This is Bevy's dependency injection. And then we also need the entity. So when we loop here, we're going to grab the entity, which I think I put at the beginning. We can check the types to make sure, and that is, in fact, at the beginning. This is... There's probably a Bevy tweening prelude that I didn't bring in, so let's do that instead. Or maybe there isn't. Maybe I just import everything. So loading color lens is not what we want. We want to transform. I do believe I use a transform lens in here. Yeah, transform scale lens. So let's grab this one instead. Put it on camera. This is transform scale lens. I think we just want transform lens. Transform position lens. There we go. And we'll start at the transform here. So we need to bring this into our loop. And this is going to be this transform.translation. So we're going to start wherever the camera already is. And we're going to end wherever the player is, which I think we have, right? Player.translation. Player.translation.xyz, I think will work for us. I think we just want to modify the XY, but this is fine. I think we're going to see some weird behavior if the Z index starts doing that. So I think we want to do this, but we want to keep the Z index actually. So I'm going to grab this and then I'm going to set the Z index to.z equals transform.translation.z. And then we can use 2 here. And that should make sure that our Z index doesn't get modified. And I think that should work unless I haven't done something down here. The default lerp function works quite well for you. Just calling lerp from old position to new position. As Bevy tweening comes with more effects. Yeah, Bevy tweening will also let me like fire events when the tween is done. So like if I wanted to let the player move around and then know when the camera was fully lerped to the player, I could fire an event when that tween was done and things like that. But you're saying you use this? You're talking about the lerp in Glam, right? Not the lerp in... There's no custom lerp in Bevy. Where are we? Not dvec, vec3. There we go. This is a Glam function. So the docs are reproduced inside of the Bevy docs, basically. Oh, their example is camera translation? That's hilarious. Where is this? Parallax mapping? That's cool, actually. Makes me want to use the built-in one. There's also cubic interpolation now. You can use this simple trick to cause nausea for your players. Well, we're not gonna try to cause nausea today. Okay. Commands, entity, insert. We're inside of this loop, right? Why is this not happy? Asset is not implemented for transform. Oh, asset animator, that's why. This isn't an asset. Looking at it going, transform isn't an asset, shouldn't be an asset. Why is it complaining that it is an asset? Can't you compile Rust to WASM and have your Bevy project on a web page? Yes, you can. Absolutely. Hey, that's exciting. That is yikes. That is yikes is what that is. Animator might not work. There may be a little bit too much going on there. Camera translation, lerp, target. Is our translation mutable? It is. Transform. So let's do this. Transform.lerp, not target, but player. Translation. And we'll get rid of this animator. I just don't want to debug it on stream right now, is all. Lerp is not in transform because translation. I don't want rotation. I don't want scale. I've clicked a couple of buttons I didn't mean to click. And then this is what, going to give us a result? No, it's not. Why are we... Oh, because we need to set it, right? So we set the translation. I'm going to get rid of this tweening stuff. I don't think it's going to work for exactly what we want. And we'll see if this smooths out a little bit more. Yeah, okay. We're gonna stick with the built-in lerp, and if I want anything fancier, I will figure it out. Interesting that we're going over a bunch of stuff now. I think it is lerping the Z index. Because we weren't going over the stairs before. We're going under the stairs. So something in our Z indexing changed. Maybe I might have changed something in the editor now that I think about it. I don't really know how to use the tiled editor yet. So I kind of like mess with stuff and see if it works. Let's see. You can compile Rust to WASM and have your Bevy project in a web page. Absolutely, you can. Overseas flight. Hoping to do some game dev. Any recommendations for how to do that without internet? Yeah, so for an overseas flight, what you're going to want to do is pick your dependencies ahead of time and do like a very basic cargo build in the directory with a bunch of your dependencies in a cargo toml. And then from then on, you're going to do a build with like -- offline or whatever. The other thing you're going to want to do is do a cargo doc. And that will put a bunch of documentation in your target directory. So it'll be in the target doc directory. And you can just run a static server and read the docs on the plane without a web connection. Those are the two things that I did on my flight to London. What editor is this? The editor is Tiled. Tiled. This is the editor. Once you compile, you should be fine offline unless you add new libraries. Absolutely. Don't add or modify dependencies and you should be fine. You should pre-download the ones that are required for your own project. But yeah, cargo doc is super important. In a way, I find 2D isometric harder than 3D ISO. Yeah, it's a little brain bendy, honestly. I keep thinking of this scene as 3D and it's not. So we've got a couple of layers here. The interesting thing for me is that these stairs in the demo that we were just looking at are z-indexed differently. And I'm not sure why that is. Because I think in the editor, they're all the same z-index here. But in our currently playing game, these stairs are behind the player and these stairs are... Get a character a little peek out behind this. Oh, it's not 3D? Yeah, this is not 3D at all, actually. This is so I was really inspired by Hades for this project. It's 8 directional movement right now, but the 8 directions are exported from Blender animations. So I actually do have the 3D animations. I have the 3D everything in here. And then I exported these, or I rendered the animations out, put them into a sprite sheet, and the sprite sheet is getting pulled in, and I'm doing 8 directional animation on the character, which is, I think, what Hades does. I don't know that for sure. Should I Google Hades? This game has a very like 2D, or it feels 3D, but it is all 2D sprites and it's an isometric level. Also, hi, love your videos. Thanks, appreciate that. Glad you're enjoying them. I have a fair bit of experience using Bevy for graphical applications, but really been itching to make a game in it for now. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why I started this project in particular. I just kind of like, I was inspired by a couple of things from Hades. I think I'm going to make a couple videos on like, so the start menu that we've been looking at here as it comes up, that is like mildly broken right now because of how I have it set up. This is all Hades inspired start menu. If you've ever seen the Hades menu, it obviously isn't going to look like this. I didn't use any of the Hades assets. But on the right-hand side, there's a Zagreus, there's icon buttons on the bottom here, and then there's the play options and quit. I got rid of the animation that I had coming in that was a title animation. But you can see we've got the version of the game in the top right and things like that. So if you looked at the Hades start menu, it would be the same. Pause. Do not actually play. Just let me. The other thing is that it's got a loading menu. See if we can full screen this. So it's got a loading menu down here. I do have the loading in my version. Press the start button. They don't press the start button. Damn. Oh well. But yeah, so I got rid of the fake load bearing tasks that I had in here, so we actually don't see the start menu ever, or the loading menu ever, because these are a bunch of fake tasks that I have in here because the assets actually load too quickly, even in development, and you can't see the loading menu. But we are actually loading in and reporting progress. So this will go over the course of, I think, like 7 or 8 seconds, showing the loading. It's not actually loading for the last few seconds, but Transistor could be excellent inspiration as well. Yeah, definitely. Not really a Bevy editor for the character, just a 3D content creator suite, one of the best in free and open source. Didn't see what that was an answer to, but Blender is great. Okay, so what do I want to do next? The camera is kind of working. I'm not too concerned with it being like bad, for lack of a better term. As long as it's following the character, then we're good. I am a little concerned about the Z indexing issues here. So I think that's going to be a larger debug process for me, and I'll do that off stream. It concerns me that we started the game before and we were over this set of stairs, and now we're playing the game and we are under this set of stairs. So I'll have to figure that out. All of the like integration code is owned by this project. So we can go in here and figure anything out. But it is a couple hundred lines of code and it's not that interesting to do on stream. So maybe we'll do colliders. I don't know. To do colliders, we would have to figure out where each of the tiles was. I think this is one tile. Yeah, so we've got this item here. That is on the walls level. We could just say anything with walls is a collider. Maybe we do this little thing over here first. Or the box. The thing with colliders is they're all going to be 2D. So they're all going to be like flat on this 2D projection. So they're actually going to look like diamonds. So maybe if we look for Bevy XBBD, if I can open the right page here. Bevy XBBD 2D should let us do all of that kind of stuff. We need collider. The other option, actually, I don't know if it's an option to do it inside of Bevy proper. We do have some new stuff coming in 0.14, but I don't think it's in 0.13, which is what I'm using. Is there a way to set priority for assets for Z-index? Well, the other thing about the Z-index, right, if we think about this, is I think it needs to change dynamically. Because if our player is behind the stairs like this, it needs to be like hidden, right? And if the player is here, then they need to be in front. So the like 2D Z indexing needs to be somewhat dynamic, I think. I don't know. I'm going to figure it out at some point. This is my first experiment with 2D isometric, so excuse me if I don't have all the answers today. So we've got colliders in Bevy XPBD. This will let us create a whole bunch of different things. I don't think we get like the projection for free. I think what I'm going to do is actually map tiles to different types of colliders. Z-index is going to be based on the camera Y. Yeah, that makes sense. Or it could make sense anyway. I'm going to grab some water and then I'll be right back, actually. My mouth is drying out. So just give me a sec and I will be back in 60 seconds. All right. How are y'all doing? Thank you, Julian. Appreciate that. Yeah, we got a chair stream. Sorry, I don't have a BRB screen, so Bevy streamed during the Franco or Champ 6 hours. I don't know what that is. Hello, Polly. How's it going? Z index based on camera Y. Yep. Give him a sec. Yep. Appreciate it. I don't know what the Franco champs are. I feel like it's an F1 thing or something. Cool. So how are we going to do 2D collision? I don't know the answer to this. I might just start drawing things on screen. If we are going to take that approach, we need to look at our tiled integration, I guess. So we have these tile bundles being spawned. We could spawn in collision here. We kind of have to know which layer entities we're spawning in. So I think long term, I probably want to like derive this information from the tiled map. This is the one we're using. So this is a tiled like XML file. It's got a bunch of stuff here, orientation, render order. The tile set here is a bunch of individual images right now. We could make that a texture atlas as well. And then it's basically a bunch of like indices as far as I can tell for the data for like what's on each layer. Actually, those are all 16s. Okay, so these are the floors and 16 is the floor for whatever reason. And then we've got a bunch of other kinds of indices here. Not F1, World Champ of Endurance, like Le Mans. Okay. Okay, but it is racing. Okay. I'm not a huge car person, so my grasp on racing stuff is tenuous. The other thing we could do at some point is generate a bunch of levels, which would be very cool because we could, for example, generate all this CSV data and then read in like a fake TMX file or build it ourselves with Bevy ECS tile map. So we have the layer entity, we have the tile position, the texture index is the index into the texture. That's probably what we really want. The tiled integration for Bevy ECS tile map is not as, we'll call it robust, I guess, as the LDTK integration. The LDTK integration has like a whole separate crate and whatnot. But okay, so we're going to leave that like that. And I'm going to debug the texture entity. Or not the entity, but the texture index, just to make sure that we can get that number. And I think all of our collision is going to be on the floor. So when we do this, we're going to have to spawn either the player in a different area or start this differently. I want it to go through the door and it can't. So I'm thinking the first one or the easiest one is going to be this platform right here. Or not platform, but this tile right here. The little square. So we should be able to walk into this and not walk over it. To do that, we would need to have a collider for our player and a collider for that floor tile, or the piece of the floor tile. I think that will be the easiest because we'll be able to squish this and rotate it a little bit to fit. I think a couple of these other things are going to be a little bit harder But let's see if we're getting our debugs. We are. These are all the texture indices. So 1, 2, 5, 8. If we look at our sample, that's the wrong sprite sheet. Is it the wrong sprite sheet? Oh, sprites. Right. It's not a sprite sheet. That's why. Okay. So we go to levels. Levels will tell us what the index is, maybe? Yeah, okay. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 total, and we're getting 10 indices. So we're not zero based here, is my understanding, which is weird, right? But it is what it is. Switch floor on E. Is that supposed to be a floor switch? Stairs corner, stairs, floor E, floor, or fence W. Fence W is interesting because we're definitely using that to be like an east fence, right? I think that's these fences. And that looks like to me like they're on the east side of that tile, but okay. Maybe we rotated them. Scaling the lerp with delta time and looks similar at any frame rate. Yes, we should be doing things with the delta time. You're absolutely right. Isn't Rust bad for game development? There are many state changes which Rust does not work well with. I don't agree with that. I feel way more confident doing state manipulation in Rust than I do in many other languages. And that's specifically because many other languages will not tell me when I'm messing things up, but Rust will. So having strong types, right? Not in the type theory sense. I'm just saying like having a type system. Having a type system, having some types and product types, enums and structs, and being able to tell, you know, what you can do with everything through the entire chain, not having that bottom out in any place, et cetera, makes dealing with state much easier. I'm observing from a light Godot user perspective, trying to figure out if Bevy is out of the way enough for you. What do you mean by out of the way? Actually, one of the things that I'm working on for a video is Bracky's just did that Godot video. And if I bring this over, I'm working on translating that Godot beginner tutorial that Bracky's just did to Bevy. So if you're looking for like what would that look like in Bevy, that's going to be the video for you. I don't know if it'll come out this week or next week, but it felt very useful. And I'm not doing it as like a use Bevy or, you know, comparison to Godot or whatever. I just thought it would be interesting. Okay, so we're ignoring this fence anyway. So we've got that box, and we've got, I guess this is a floor switch technically. Wall E, wall curve, window S, stairs S. This is our crate. So it's got to be the switch. I don't like using indexes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we should have 1, 8 in our logs. 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. 6 is clearly floors. We are 0 indexed, so we have 11. That's 3, 8, so it's not 8, so it's 7. So if we go back to our code here, A floor switch. Huzzah. So this is where we're going to need to add our collider. Maybe we get Bevy XPBD in here, since that seems to be what I'm already going to do. I don't think we need any of the features. I don't remember anything offhand. I don't think we need anything from any of this. We want the debug plugin, though, which is on by default. This is going to go into ECS tiled as well. So I'm going to go P Bevy ECS tiled. I don't love putting it in the tiled package. I think that that probably isn't where we want it, but it'll work for now. I'll imagine it'll get there eventually, but it'll a rough jump from Godot if you're not used to raw code. Yeah, so Bevy is very, very like programmer centric at the moment. Centric is the wrong word. It doesn't have a UI. So if you're going to do something like build a 2D level editor or build a 2D level, you have to use like either your custom thing or, you know, tiled or LDTK or something like that, which is fine if you're okay with that. But if you're not okay with that and you're, you know, if you need the UI inside of Godot, for example, then it's going to be a little bit harder for you. But if you are a programmer, you write code, and you like Rust, it's worth a shot, at least. What I'm doing today is not indicative of like all of the code that you can write with Bevy. Specifically because I actually don't know how to do 2D isometric stuff. So I'm diving in a little bit deeper than you would need to. But I would start off, if you're interested in Bevy, I would start off with something like, you know, Snake, Flappy Bird, 2048, Asteroids, anything like that. Okay, so we need a collider here. We need to add the plugin first. So let's go to Bevy XPBD GitHub. Inside of these crates will be examples. So Bevy XPBD 2D examples. They have a kinematic character controller now. I think I missed that. There's two major collision libraries right now, or physics libraries. One of them is rapier.rs. And they do have a character controller. I don't know if they call it a character controller. I don't remember. I really don't like Algolia search. It doesn't help me ever on any site. Yeah. So they have a character controller, which is great. I've used this before. It works just fine. It does all the things that you would like expect it to do with, you know, like auto stepping, for example, snapping to the ground on curves and things like that. Bevy XPBD is a little bit earlier. I don't think they have a full character controller. Yeah, and I don't see one in this example. So here, character controller plugin. Where is that coming from? That's not built in, is it? I think I missed that they shipped a character controller. That's cool. Okay, maybe they haven't shipped it yet. Maybe that's just on the main branch. Because it's not in helpers. Oh, it might be in plugin. It might have been in this folder. Yeah, okay. This is custom. This isn't built in. Very cool though. Okay, so we need to do a much more basic setup. Sensors are going to be interesting. We can do raycasting. Custom collider might be interesting for us. Collision layers, probably going to be interesting for us at some point. I don't think we need it today. There's trench broom integration too. Yeah, I saw that the other day. I don't like the project didn't do a particularly good job of like explaining what Trench Room was. But there's a level editor that is Trench Room inspired that just came out last week or something before that. But this is like Quake levels and whatnot, right? I think I said Doom levels when I explained it. That's probably wrong. Bevy supports Android deployments. Yes, it does. They don't ship with one in the example. Yep, absolutely. There's apparently a Godot extension for Rust. Yes, there is a Godot extension for Rust. People seem to be relatively happy with it. I don't know too many people that are using it, but it's got docs and whatnot. So I assume this is the easier way to get Rust into your game if you're already using Godot. And again, if you're shipping to like consoles, I think Godot is the obvious choice over Bevy. Substep count, gravity, we don't need any of that. Where's our plugins? Why am I having such a hard time navigating this Git repo right now? Examples common 2D. Where's common? I feel like I'm losing it right now. Is it in a different crate? Ah, there we go. Okay. That makes more sense. Okay, so that's a wild setup. We're going to use the physics debug plugin, and we'll also get the physics plugin here. This is going to be awkward. I'm going to add this in here, I think. I don't love adding like the physics plugins and stuff in here. Add plugins. Let's qualify these so I can pull it out later, because just kind of experimenting right now. I don't ship anything. I just want to play around with stuff. Then Bevy's great. I think that Bevy will be better as the years go on. And I really like being able to like reach in and modify whatever I want. Bevy is extremely modular. If you wanted to replace, you know, some aspect of the renderer or write your own shaders and modules and, you know, replace, I don't know, some random piece of it, you can, which is really great, honestly. Okay, so physics plugin. We need to bring in the prelude. I disconnected my keyboard again. I don't know how I keep doing that. Prelude star. And then we need to go back down to our tile bundle. And here we're going to need a collider. Why is that not... Oh, because I haven't built yet. Let's do a cargo check. Cargo check. There we go. So we get collider in here, and this should have a new function in here. Why is collider? Did I not bring in... I definitely brought in the prelude at the top just now, didn't I? Did I type the wrong thing? I did. It helps to, you know, actually import the right code. Okay, new. This can be a, what do we want this to be? Probably a regular polygon. No, not a regular polygon. We want, let's take a look at the docs, see which one we're going to use. Random beginner problem. Can't always tell what should be a component or a resource. So yeah, if you have data that is relative to a single entity, use a component. If you have data that is global, that is like the entire game uses one instance of this piece of data, you can put it in a resource. So resources are global data and components are local data, effectively. You want to ship a Bevy 3D game to phone browsers. Cool. Yeah, like Xavier is saying, resources are global data. A component means like entity local data. Okay, so I don't know which collider we're going to want here. I might just put in a rectangle for the moment. And then here's the thing that I'm not sure of just yet. This is a 2D isometric game. So am I going to want to apply the projection at which points to like colliders and things like that? So if we run the game, you can see like I'm doing 45-degree angles. That's not running the game. Actually, the game won't run right now because I have an error. But I'm doing 45-degree angles for the movement if you're on a keyboard. And I think we should be doing like 30 in each direction or 30 and 60 or something like that. Something slightly off so that it fits the like diamond shape pattern of the isometric. But I don't know if I want to do that on like the camera level or if I want to do that on the like component level. Scale, projection point. Okay, we've got circles, we've got ellipses, half. I don't even know what a half space is. I need to figure that out at some point. I'll open that for later. Height fields, intersects, polylines. Polylines would work. I think a rectangle is probably what we want here. X length, Y length, and then we rotate it maybe. I don't know what the sizes of these are going to be, so I'm going to pick random values. And I think that this is a 2-to-1 aspect ratio. So I think we need to do like 50-25. Half space is an infinite plane. Ah, that makes more sense. Good afternoon, Dusk. How are you? So I think we can get away with a rectangle. We have the debug plugin in, so we're going to see wherever this is placed. It should be placed in the same like 0, 0 location as the tile local. So this should be, in my mind, the easiest collider to do. And all of the collisions for this are happening on the base. So they're all going to be effectively diamonds. One thing that is interesting is like if we, I guess if I zoom in here, right? I don't know yet how we're going to deal with like, imagine this fence post is like behind these stairs. There has to be a collider there that's kind of just like a straight line. Yeah, what Spud said. If my game had a resource representing jump cooldown and I decided to make the game multiplayer, I'd have to refactor the jump cooldown to being a component, right? Because it's no longer singleton. Yes, very likely. You could theoretically have resources for each player. Like you could just say, hey, this is a 4-player game. It's always going to have 4 players. I'm going to have 4 player resources or something. Or like player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4. It would probably make more sense to do it as a component. But yeah, you've got the right idea, Gate. Or not Gate. So that went way up here. That must be the curved wall. I think we used the curved wall index and not the whatchamacallit. So it's not 7 that we need. Let's go for levels.tmx. Oh, they have the IDs here. But those IDs aren't the IDs we actually want, I don't think. So we've got, let's say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Would be this. It's saying this is 7. I hope this is deterministic. If this is not deterministic, it's not going to be good. It is deterministic. Good. I was hoping we would have a really lightweight way to do that, but I haven't even switched this over to a texture atlas yet. Don't really want to just iterate over this over and over. Oh, you know what? Actually, am I doing this for everything? I'm doing this for everything. If I'm doing this for everything, that's interesting because I don't think we have the positional information there. So they're all going 0, 0 right now. So tile bundle is actually not what we want on our collider on. What's in tile bundle? Tile bundle does come from... There's always the danger with doing things that I don't already know how to do on stream. Let's see. I don't want to go to docs.rs because I'm using the... wow, that's a lot. I'm using the 0.13 version, which is the main branch of Bevy ECS tile map. So we need to run cargo doc and run the docs locally. It is all. This is what you would need to do off if you were doing offline documentation as well. It will document like everything. So there's that. Hey, thank you for the content. It's always helpful. Glad you're enjoying it. I'm glad you're finding it useful. It's always nice to know that like people are actually using the stuff that I put out and finding it helpful and whatnot. So I think tile bundle probably hasn't changed. So we've got tile position. Tile position is not the transform. So that's why our collider isn't in the right spot. That makes a lot of sense, actually. So I was actually adding the collider to the wrong thing. That's not where the collider is supposed to be. Target, dock. So we go localhost 8000 now. We get this awful directory listing. Which we want Bevy ECS tile map and tile bundle. I don't think tile bundle has changed. I don't think it will have a transform. So that's not actually what we need to do or where we need to put that. So we do need to find like the actual location of this. Is there anything for Bevy for animation similar to call method and Godot animation tracks? The capacity to call a function at a specific keyframe during animation. I don't think there's anything built in right now. There's a curves working group that just started up to do some like Bezier curve type things. There's a couple of like tweening libraries, which is basically what you're talking about. Bevy Tweening is one that I'm currently using. I think there's also like any variation of Bevy Tweening and Tweens, Bevy Tweens, Bevy Tween, Bevy Tweening, or whatever are probably all crates. There's a couple of other ones too, depending on, you know, whatever you like for your API. But you can totally do tweens. There's just no like, it's not going to be as straightforward. Okay, so we need to not put this here. This is tile position, X, Y. I thought we were doing our positional translation here, but maybe not. Tile map texture. Tile position. This is the tile map. Since it's only X and Y, do you control the isometric view with layer and X calculations? Y calculations, I think, is the right way to do that. I have used Bevy Tweening. It seems weird to me. It's not integrated with the Bevy event listener crate, which will be upstreamed. I hope I could contribute to this. It seems important for animations. I would love to see people contributing to animation stuff. That would be wonderful. Heavily in support of that idea. Okay, let's pull this stuff out, I think. I don't think that we want what this is doing currently. So let me take this and do that. Yada yada, asset stuff. Yeah, so I think I want the physics plugins to be in the base crate anyway. Feels awkward, honestly. I will say the tiled integration is much rougher than the LDTK integration. So if you look at Bevy ECS LDTK, which I have used before, it's significantly easier to put things in the right places. And will let you actually define things inside of the level editor and then spawn them into the game. But Tiled doesn't have an official integration, so it's kind of like all on me to make work. It does have RS Tiled, which is what I'm using for parsing the TMX file. And this is fine. It just doesn't it doesn't help you at all. Rapier. What about it? The issue that we're having here is not collision library related, if that makes sense. Is that I need to add colliders to the positions of a 2D isometric map. I need to figure out how to do that in the right way because I don't understand how 2D isometric works yet. But the first thing I'm going to do is actually add these plugins in my main app, and then I think do the work over here, because we're not going to add it to the tile itself, I guess. Where's the cargo toml for that? Here, so we're going to pull this out. Actually, that's going to go into the root, now that I think about it. So I do have a workspace here. I'm putting everything in the workspace, generally speaking. And then when I go into my actual application, when I want a dependency on it, I'm doing the dependency.workspace equals true. And then we need to import the prelude. Prelude star. And then I think I took this out of over here, right? Yes. Great. So we can put colliders in here for our player, and we can put colliders in here for individual tiles. But the positioning on screen is determined in a way that I'm not currently grasping. Usually there's a transform component on the entity that is related to a tile, which is absolutely true. But we are not doing anything with the transform right now. Like, even if I look for transform in here, there's a bunch of helper functions for getting the positions of these things. But this is for the tile map. This is the whole thing. What's Ivy? Is it the name of a game or a library that you haven't heard of? Ivy is just what I decided to call this project. There's nothing to it. Nothing interesting. Nothing, no new big library or anything. Literally just the name that I gave this project. I needed something, and that's just what I called it. Okay, so that leaves us with an interesting scenario, right? Because Bevy ECS tile map. What we were looking at earlier, the tile bundle, doesn't actually have a transform on it. So we don't automatically get the colliders and whatnot. Which feels weird. Right, we do get tile position. And I assume that's what Bevy ECS tile map is handling, and then transforming to transforms. So maybe I do something a little bit different. Filling geometry, projection, selection, square grid, diamond, positions for diamond isometric. Yada, yada, yada. Basically just a vec2. Are there tile positions within the larger tile JPEG? What do you mean by the larger tile JPEG? You call your projects by the US phonetic alphabet names? Alpha Abel? Abel Baker Charlie? I thought it was Alpha. So we can do things like figure out where a tile is supposed to be. I really, like, in the long term, I don't want to like be placing colliders on things like that are not the actual entity. So maybe we do something silly like iterate over the tiles or iterate over the entities that have tiles, and we can work from there. It's alpha now. It was different in the 40s. You just look up cool sounding words. Yeah. I already had like a druid in this one, so I was like, oh, maybe it's going to be in a forest. I don't know. It's green stuff. Selection, nope. So let's write a simple debugging system then, because I feel like, well, the first thing I keep doing is disconnecting my keyboard somehow. I think my keyboard is dying. Not great. So let's go to lib or main or whatever, because this is just going to be debugging. When we start the game, we're going to run something. And this is going to be what? Run in-game app state. We could just add it there, I guess. So let's add a debug tile map here. And this is going to be right here because I'm planning on deleting this. Debug tile map. And we can run a query for tiles, right? So if we query for tile position, and we get the entity here. So let's do entity tile position. Then we can do for tile and tiles, debug tile dot component info, tile dot 0. We need commands here. Commands dot entity, tile dot 0 dot, I think it's log components is the right function. We don't get the autocomplete yet because I don't have commands in here, but commands, tile position does need to come in from there. Commands doesn't have 3 M's in it. So this should run, and it should start logging out the components on the entities that have tile positions. And it will just do that repeatedly over and over and over. So this gives us some insight into, so these are the entity IDs, these are the tile position components, and this is just all of the components that are on that. Your level editor in Bevy is named Stove. Nice. For baking Unreal maps. I like it. So anything with a tile position isn't really what we want. So maybe we do something really silly to start out with. Let's do a commands.spawn. Let's do a collider. And we want that rectangle again. We're going to do something like 50 by 25. And I'm going to add a tile position to this. And right now I'm just kind of debugging. I'm not really exactly sure what I'm looking for, but I'm mostly saying, okay, how does this component affect how things are placed on the screen? And what I'm expecting here is either a panic because the tile position isn't supposed to be placed on anything else, or it to show up in a different place. So you can see that this is the component that I just added, right? It's got a very early ID, entity 3 version 2. It's got a transform and a bunch of other stuff. It didn't look like it was being positioned on screen, which was interesting. So let's do with collider, I think. And we can do debug once, probably. And I'm going to add the collider to this query so that we select for only the components with tile position and collider. Entity log components. Why is that complaining now? Oh, because I wrote it wrong. So this should give us a log out for that one tile that is supposed to be in that position. It is not. It is in 0, 0. You can see our state machine working. Getting some information from our tiled integration. Map totally added. Everything's good. Game startup. Entity tile position game collider. We aren't getting any of these logs, which means that the query is wrong, effectively, which is really strange. Oh, maybe I didn't bring it into the scene. Is that possible? That's possible. I feel like I should take a trig class. I don't know. Math is all right. I think the 2D isometric stuff is just confusing. I think if you stick to other things, you need less math. If you do a bunch of rendering, you might need a little bit more math, but I don't know that it's trig necessarily. Okay, so we've got a transform there. We've got a collider. We've got a position for Bevy XBBD 2D. We do not have that tile position anymore, do we? Tile position right here. I don't think this is controlling anything. I feel like this is a thing we're supposed to read out. This is the tile storage that we use to actually spawn stuff. Tile bundle has the texture index, the tile map ID, whether it's visible, flipped, color, the old position, the current position. Material tile map bundle is actually what I want in the future because I want to write shaders on top of these. Why does that have a transform? Well, I guess that's the tile map itself. That's not the thing. Okay. I was really hoping that that tile position was going to work, and it did not. Examples. This is the Bevy examples. That's not what I want. Bevy, ECS, tile map examples. Why do these feel not... Oh, that's because it's source. Having a terrible time navigating GitHub today. Okay, accessing tiles here. This is on startup. This loads in. So this all loading code is in our other location. Tile bundle, tile storage. This is a position and an entity. So maybe we would be able to get that. This is the kind of stuff that I'm interested in playing with. So we can get the neighboring tiles for a given tile. And we could do something like this where we reach into the tile storage and we get it by the tile position. That's not really what I want to do. This is the tile map itself. Update map. Does this game use pixels or PNG pictures with transparent backgrounds? I don't know what the difference between pixels and PNG pictures is. But it is PNGs, if that helps. So this is the tiled editor. We can place a bunch of stuff in here. Right, so I can place stuff in here, and now this floor up here is expanded. So like, if I save this, and because we aren't running, go back and rerun, we'll end up with the game, and I have the wrong map open over there, but that's interesting. Am I loading the right map? Oh, that's the wrong map. That makes sense. Open file or project. This one. This is our map. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. This is our map. This is our second floor. We can do floors like this. If I save this, because we're actually using that one, that should work. It helps to save the things that you're actually using. That also didn't do it though. What am I doing wrong here? Open file or project, assets, levels, sample, levels. Levels is the one that we have. It has these tiles. Now I'm just getting myself into a corner over here. Why is... Oh, you know what? Actually, there's something about the sizing of this, I think, that I don't have a grasp on yet. This is the floor. So we should be able to say that. Oh, I didn't export it. That's why. I think that's what I have here. So many times going mad because editing a wrong copy of a file. Yeah, right. Like one of the classic programmer issues. I'm just going to call this levels 2. We're going to go back in here just to do a little sanity check. I'm going to name this levels 2. And if that doesn't work, then I've done something very wrong. Okay. IV assets levels 2. Am I saving this into the wrong directory? That's entirely possible. File. Open. Yes. Oh my. I'm not even in the right project. I copied and pasted this out. Okay. I copied and pasted this out at one point because I was working on it in a different context and decided that I wanted to do it as a separate project. And I left my thing. So that wasn't even the right project to be looking at the level in. Just doing a great job today on the stream. Only 3 hard things: cache invalidation, naming things, going insane, and off by 1 errors. Okay, so now we have second floor up here. If I place tiles up here, provided I haven't messed something else up. You know, some days it is just not, and levels 2 is no longer the thing because we're back on levels. Oh, some days, yo. Some days just don't, and then we have the level up there. That makes so much more sense. Okay. Okay. And then actually, now that is actually working, let me get over here like this. So now we've got the level editor, right? And we've got our running game on the right-hand side. And if I put in a bunch of tiles here and I hit save, we see them show up in the editor. Hell, bro, you worked at Docker and I haven't even made an HTML website. You know, I don't sweat it. I'm pretty used to messing stuff up, especially live. But it still is you know, still is a vibe. So this is very cool because we can just kind of like, if I was like, oh dang, I wish there was, you know, more floor here to run on. Which is cool. I want to be able to take stuff inside of this editor and draw the collision using the editor, and I don't quite know how to do that with Tiled. I know how to do that with LDTK. It looks like there are some kind of shapes in here. So maybe we do new layer, tile object image group. What if we do objects? Can we name this collision maybe? Let me just have some random thing here. I don't know how that shows up. Let's go take a look at the TMX file. So TMX, we've got tile set, we've got layers. This is walls, that's floor. This is second floor. And I don't even see the layer we just created. I don't see this geometry layer. Which is really interesting. Why would I not see it? I would expect to see it. But this is falling back on, I don't have a firm enough grasp on Tiled yet. So we'll get rid of that layer. But I would like to, at some point, do like collision based on stuff that I draw in the editor and not collision based on the game itself. Okay, so we're spawning in like this. Tile position, that gives us this. It doesn't go in the right spot. But if we did something really strange, like transform, I guess spatial bundle is the right thing to do here. We could just put a transform component on it, but I think spatial bundle. From transform from XYZ. And we just do this like 10, 10, I don't know, 10, 10, 10, 10. This should show up in a different location. Oh, if I type my F32s correctly. So it is adjusted to the right, and we can modify this collider based on this transform if we want to, which means I could put it in that spot down there. I don't want to do that. I don't want that to be the way that we accomplish how this works, but we could take this box and just put it down here. I do want this area to not be like, I want 0, 0 to not be in the center of this wall. So maybe we move things around a little bit. So what do we have here? We have like this. How do I make a collider for the wall? So the wall is going to be a rectangle collider basically on this grid position. I think that's the thing that's tripping me up the most, is that each of these sprites is layered on a different layer. And in this example, they use different grids. So if you see, if I zoom in here, you can see like this fits into that square, right? So the collider for this wall would need to be a rectangle that went slightly into this tile, up, slightly over, and back down, right? Like you can see it's like a rectangle that is like rotated by 30 degrees and it's just on the screen. But if we look at the floor is not the same grid. So we actually don't just need a tile position, we need a tile position for the appropriate layer to place the collider in the right spot. So I think that's actually what's tripping me up here. Here's my massive sprite sheet for that character. My plan for the character is to do more angles and to be able to control this with a controller. No, it's not 3D. It's 2D. It's entirely 2D. These are all sprites. None of this is 3D. Well, it's 3D before it's sprites, but it's all sprites. It's all 2D. How to use the Z-axis position? Based on the Y-axis, I think. How many sprites is this? This is 1,000, if I remember correctly. Actually, you do have that answer. Player lib main. Yeah, so 48, 60, and 24 all times 8. So what is that? 48 times 8. I guess 48 plus 60 plus 24, what, times 8? Oh, come on, do math. 1,056 is how many sprites I have in that sprite sheet. It's a fairly big sprite sheet, and it's not optimized at all. So it is literally a grid, and it is not packed in any way. Just because I find that easier to work with at the moment. I can do optimization later. So yeah, I'm anticipating doing Z index based on the Y index. Because if you're here, right, you should be over the stairs. If you're here, you should be behind the stairs. And so on and so forth. But the other thing I will say is that the tiled editor, when I've loaded this in, has had different Z indexes at different times. So that's going to make internal windows have the same baked shadows as external, or do you have an internal variant? You mean like the shadow like inside of this little archway thing? That's just on the sprite. That is not like if I, what do I do? The tooling in tiled is so annoying. And it doesn't let me see what I'm doing with the thing as I'm clicking those buttons. Flip vertically. Okay, so I can Y, X. So you can see how the shadow like doesn't line up in that sense. Right? Like if I put this over here, the sun looks like it's coming from maybe up here. I guess that does look the same in this case. But it is baked onto the sprite. It's not it's nothing special. Like these are not 3D objects. They're just PNGs. Yeah, so I think when it comes down to it, there are things on different layers. Each of the layers actually has a different grid. So a tile position is not enough to place us on the map. It has to be a tile position and a layer at minimum. I know that a couple of these demos do tiled stuff. Quadrant size, tile map ID, commands, tile storage. This is just filling stuff in. So I think for this, I'm gonna read some code for Bevy ECS tile map and get a better understanding of the integration and how it needs to work with tiled. Because I'm effectively writing this integration with no tiled experience is the issue. Our tile map does have a transform. So yeah, maybe collision wasn't the best thing to work on, but you know, it is what it is. Hindsight 2020. So spatial bundle, tile position, collider, rectangle. It's really strange. So Bevy ECS tile map does have helpers. I wonder if we can grab one of those helpers. And I think square grid diamond. Yeah, so these are two-dimensional matrices. Restream, yeah, you doing this often? Yeah, every Saturday morning. How do I have tiling on Mac? It's you buy. Can you see a quick demo of the game? Yes, this is the game. You said you saw it earlier. It's not super interesting yet. It's a character on a screen. Most of the work that I've done so far has been into turning these Blender images and animations into a sprite sheet that we can then use in the game, and then writing that integration. So this is a sprite. It's not 3D. It's got 3 actions. So I know you can't tell because it's like very small, especially through YouTube, but this is an idle animation. It's got a running animation, and then it's got a dash. I do have a Discord server. I need to put the Discord server invite somewhere. Let's see. Invite. Generate new link. Z-indexing is definitely a bit weird. Z-indexing is 100% weird. No question about it. The Z-indexing is a problem to fix. Where we are at in the game right now is effectively I've built or semi-copied, semi-built a tiled integration for this map. This map has multiple layers. It's got 3 layers. So the integration is a little bit more complicated than the other 2D map editors that I've worked with. So LDTK uses like the same grid for all of its layers, which makes a lot of sense. And I find LDGK easier to work with. So that's basically my problem right now, is that I don't really understand tile deeply. So doing the right things is a little bit of me trying to figure out how tiled is supposed to work and then matching that with how Bevy works. The character is an asset that I bought. So the animation is actually not animation that I did. This is an itch.io asset. .io. Let's see if I can find it quickly. Assets. Druid. Hopefully that'll get us there. Oh, that's not the right bar to search in, is it? Isometric. Somewhere in here. I don't actually know if it's isometric. I think I just searched for 3D characters. I don't know where to find stuff. My library. There we go. K-Kit. This is the place that I got that character. It is low poly, 3D, pre-animated and rigged, which is what I was looking for. Because I can always replace this later, but I wanted to have something that was already set up. So I took that into Blender, and I have this script here. I don't know, can I make that bigger? I don't know how to work the Blender UI, so I can't make that any bigger. Sorry. But I've got this script here that basically takes a number of angles with a camera parented to an empty and turns it around in a circle and renders out for each of those angles. Right now I'm using 8 angles. I intend to up that to probably like 36 because I'm looking for a bit more of a fluid. I want it to look like it could be 3D, if that makes sense. Like Asaki is asking, is the map 3D or is it pre-rendered? It is neither. It is sprites. It is literally just 2D PNGs. There is no part before that. It's just 2D PNGs. So the whole thing is actually 2D. So when we look at this, right, this looks like it's a little 3D character running around and being animated with bones and everything, and it's not. It's just a sprite sheet. Control space. So it's kind of pre-rendered. Yeah, I would say it's like if you wanted to take that workflow, it would be pre-rendered to a tile set and then put together in 2D. Grid size, map size. Layers. Finite. I've delved a bit into Bevy, still getting a head around the ECS. It does look very promising though. Godot can't handle my needs anymore. What are your needs? What are you building in Godot? I'm really optimistic about Bevy's future, is the way that I'll put it. I think that it's great for some things currently. It is not great for everything currently. I think the ECS works out actually really well. I actually haven't shown the character controller that I have here yet, but I do kind of like the way the character controller is coming out. Where are we doing this? So we've got our player somewhere. Am I in the right file? I'm never in the right file. That's my issue. I'm never in the right place, never working on the right file. So we've got this state machine here, and these are components. So idling is a component, running is a component, dashing is a component. Those are all defined here. So they have timers and frames and whatever. So I'm doing an animation for each of them. They're just components that get added to and removed from the player entity. The systems are extremely simple in the sense of when we are in a state and animating or whatnot, then this is the system that's running and operating on that. It operates based on whether those components are on the actual player entity. And then we've got triggers to push us into a different state. And I really like the way that this isolates everything, right? Like I know a lot of people are very object oriented, very like everything should be one massive game object, but that just isn't, it's not the way my brain works, I guess. The isometric view of the Blender video is a PNG render with a transparent background. Yes. I think. Single player or multi? This is single player right now. It's just a demo at the moment. So it does work. It does run. It's basically the combination of two demos that I was working on last week. If I boot this up again, you'll see like the loading screen, the start screen, and then it sends you into a level. And everything before you get sent into a level was one demo, and everything after you get sent into a level was another demo. And I just kind of put them both together and started making this as a game. Control spaces to toggle the active editor as full window in Blender. Oh! Control space. Sick. That doesn't help the zoom level. But I can figure out the zoom level. That's sick though. Thank you for that shortcut. Also, the interface between Godot extension and GDScript is still not perfect, so I prefer to have a fast language everywhere. GDScript struggles with even nested loops. Oh, so you're doing large voxel maps. Yeah, there's a couple people doing voxel stuff in Bevy. They seem to be having a good time with it. I don't know too much about voxel development. I see people do a bunch of different data structures and things like that, but I myself have not built a voxel engine. Object orientation creates a much more difficult global scope to control. Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily the object orientation that does that necessarily. I think that having like massive objects with a bunch of state in them And like, how do I phrase this? I feel like you end up falling into very easily the pattern of just having like a God object where this object does everything I need it to do. And then how does it interact with the rest of the world? Or like, how do you build other things on top of that? Starts to become kind of an issue. But that's just like my personal take. That's just my preferences. There's nothing wrong with it. Voxels seem to be a perfect case for compute shaders, which Godot also got a while back. Sick. I think there are people using compute shaders for various things right now. Where was I? I was doing something. Oh, right. I was importing, seeing if I could import one of these things. That's just diamond position. That's not really what I want. I don't want the grid. To have neighbors, we would have to have like a thing already. So we're not going to do that yet. Thank you for this. I'm too new at wrestling's book to follow everything, but this is the goal. Nice. Yeah, don't worry about following everything that I'm doing. If you do have questions, I'm free. I'm happy to answer them. But definitely don't feel like you need to understand everything. Especially not if you're just starting to go through wrestlings. Projection. What else do we have here? Filling, geometry, hex grid, projection, selection. Do we not have that? Why is that not auto-completing? Localhost 8000 ECS tile map. So I'm using the main branch of Bevy ECS tile map. That's why I can't go to the official docs. I have to go to my like locally built docs. Selection has nothing in it. Why does it exist? Maybe there's supposed to be something into it. Let's see. We've got, there's a font size option in the sidebar, Control T. Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm clearly not super experienced at using Blender, so I appreciate that. In Godot, everything goes into the garbage collector, so I think that makes a big impact on performance. It definitely can. A good engine for small scale projects or 2D, but struggles with 3D large stuff. Interesting. I don't have a lot of Godot experience, so it's cool to hear from people who do. I like how Rust doesn't have much object-oriented primitives. I always like components, even when I did C in Python. Hierarchical OO makes my head hurt. Either too simple or too complicated. Yeah, I think that the classic examples of like, you have a pet. Everything is a pet. It has 4 legs and whatever. It doesn't really reflect the code that I see in production. I do believe we are viewing OOP and functional or whatever way too narrow. In the end, it's concepts you can mix and match. Rust is literally the prime example. Yeah, I mean, like, if you're going to go to an extreme, you're going to have issues probably either way. Right? Like, the idea that you would, you know, Haskell is purely functional, right? Pure is not, I don't like the word, but it means mathematically pure, not like morally pure. There are things I like about Haskell. There are things that are tough in Haskell. And, you know, same way, if you go too far into object-oriented or too far into purely functional, you can run into similar types of issues, for sure. I gotta think ECS is the perfect solution for your traditional roguelike, since every kind of monster can just be made via composition of different parts and behaviors. Yeah, to some extent. I think that there's a decent amount of manual design that goes into things that even look procedurally generated. You know? But it's easy to do both of those things in Bevy. So too complicated. Electrical engineering is more easier than this. More easier than what? I don't know that I can really show this on camera necessarily, but I have a bunch of like little boards and stuff just sitting on my desk for things that I intend to work on or am working on. Speaking of electrical engineering. Resolution scale. Cool. Appreciate that. Curious about components with UI. Haven't looked into it, but for now, OOP seems the best for UI. I guess. Oh, yes, when you chat and spill your soda. Great times. Really nice. I hope you didn't just spill your soda and that you were laughing at me potentially spilling a soda. Okay, so these are animations. Animation at least will allow us to fetch something, right? So this is create background, create animated flowers. The other thing is that Bevy ECS tile map is like, it doesn't need a level editor. So I am making things more complicated by doing that, which is fine. I do think that having the editor will be better in the long run. This chooses 10 random tiles for flowers and then puts an animated tile in here with indices and a speed. So that's cool. But that is just the tile bundle. There's got to be more helpers like this. Of course, it's the only one in geometry. Curious about components with UI. Yes. Godot isn't slow with low poly 3D. Too many vector calculations with high polygon count can slow the frame count. I think that's true for anything. I think anything with too many polys is going to be an issue. Referring to UI in Bevy is, I won't say that it's the most intuitive thing. There are people working on a better UI system currently, just to be clear about that. But this is roughly what it looks like if I can get to a place that makes sense. So everything is still an entity. So you spawn in bundles which have components. There are style components and background color components and various things like that. You can animate them and operate them on systems just like you would expect to. So this animate loop thing is just a custom component I wrote for this demo. And then I use that in a system to actually animate this piece of the UI. UI is camera driven in Bevy. So if you put UI on a specific camera, it will show up on that camera. So we could do a HUD here. That would be cool. I don't know that there's much reason to at the moment because there's nothing to display. But at some point we'll do like chest opens and collectibles and like, you know, little power-ups or something. This is an image bundle. It's got a style. It's very CSS-like, but not exactly CSS. It uses a library called Taffy under the hood. You get to use all of your texture atlases and things like that. Because these are all components, you get to animate them in any way that you would normally. So anything that works for like a regular transform would work here as well. But yeah, the visual acuity, if you will, of this is, in my opinion, significantly lower than like HTML, right? Like this is a node bundle with some CSS effectively, and a button with some text inside of it. So like in CSS, this would be, you know, like div button text, right? So like it's not the best, but it does work. And it is like, it's fine. And you can do everything with it. It is just, you know, not the experience I would expect having worked on the web for a long time. You like ECS from a design perspective, not only performance. Yeah, I do like building games with small systems that operate on just what they need to. That does work very well for me personally. Okay, so we don't have any helpers that really help us here. Map, prelude, tile map size, spacing, type. Thanks for supporting the community in Bevy. Yeah, of course. I do This Week in Bevy every week, if anybody isn't aware of that. So if you're interested in Bevy stuff, check out that site and those videos. Okay, where was I? I think that I'm gonna do more Collider stuff later. I think I'm gonna bail out on the Collider stuff a little bit. I did spend quite a while trying to look into it, but I think that on stream is not the right place to do that for me right now. I need to read some of the Bevy ECS tiled code, and that's not interesting to do. This Week in Bevy is great. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's amazing how much stuff happens every week, honestly. Like there are just so many people working on so many things. This is like somebody that does VJ sets. There's like more smooth voxel lighting implementation. This is somebody that deployed Bevy onto a Steam Deck. Jarl is very cool. I think this is the Jarl site. Fantasy Colony Builder, also on YouTube if you're going to look them up. 2D as well. This uses something called Bevy Magic Light 2D, which is very, 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 very cool. Which is a 2D lighting implementation. So you can see how it kind of like maps onto this tile set. You discovered Bevy because you needed a 3D view in your app, not a game, and the ECS was definitely useful for the whole app, not just a 3D view. Yeah. There's also, man, I'm going to forget the, it's not Nosy. And Niklas, Bevy, static site. There we go. Synog. Synog is a static site generator that uses Bevy's ECS as the data layer. And then uses Leptos as effectively the front end, which is very cool. There's not a lot of people using it yet, but it's a very cool idea. Is it WGPU lighting? I don't know what the implementation is today. I think the implementation is in shaders, if that's what you're asking. But I don't think that it is compute. Okay. I know that they were looking into radiance cascades for this crate at one point. I don't think they're there yet. Maybe they do. I haven't been paying too close of attention lately. That game is using this crate for lighting. So whatever this crate does, Bevy Magic Light 2D is what that game does. Because this game is made by the same person that makes that plugin. Hello. How are you? But they have a bunch of information on their YouTube about that game. Heard that the UI framework Xylem is going to use Winit. That's nice to get more crates stable and so on. Yeah. Also, I'm super excited for like Velo and Bevy and whatnot. Velo is the backend for Xylem. And the idea that we could integrate not just Velo, but potentially also Xylem for UI in the future is very exciting. Not gonna lie, I found you through Rust videos. Are you sometimes in voice on Discord where one could discuss topics aside from chatting? I don't, in the Discord that I linked earlier, I don't really have a voice channel. And I do that intentionally because I don't have time to moderate the voice channel. But I do show up in various places on the internet. Like I'm streaming right now and stuff like that. Okay, there is no like texture vac, container spacing, remove tiles, random map, move tile, LDDK, layers. Let's look at layers. Hexagons, game of life, custom shaders, chunking, bench basic, accessing tiles. And then 3D ISO doesn't actually have anything here. Oh, actually, Y-sort true might be. Now that do I have Y-sort true here? What was that called? That was called tiled map bundle. Y-sort true. So that's in here, right? Oh no, actually that's something else. This render settings, tile map render settings. So this is the chunk size and the Y sorting. And I do have this for, I have that set to true. Dimensions of a chunk in tiles. Okay, if true, uses the chunks Z and Y when sorting during rendering. That is good. When using this option with layered tile maps, Z values for layers should be separated by at least 1 unit. I think that's probably my problem. Our player is probably on one of these layers. Rendered chunk sizes, Z value should be 1. Is that what I have? I think so. Can I deploy a Bevy game to GitHub pages using Cloudflare workers for a backend? I don't know. You can definitely deploy a Bevy game to like GitHub pages, but for the backend, I don't know anything about Cloudflare workers. I don't use them, so. So I guess what? Don't include that transform. If I don't include that transform, then it'll default to whatever it sets, right? Does that fix our Y-index issues? Okay, we're in front of that. Does not fix our Y-index issues. We're behind that, in front of that. I don't know where I put the player. I put the player somewhere. Player is 3 right now. I don't know how I'm supposed to integrate the player with the tile map Z indexing. But you can see like right now the player is just completely behind except for the ground layer. Are you making this a tutorial working on my own game? Right now, this is just something that I'm working on for myself. I do have basically all of the code is already pushed to GitHub for the different things that I'm doing here. So in the Rust Adventure Bevy examples repo, there's an 8-way sprites demo. This 8-way sprites is that Druid sprite sheet that we looked at earlier, and the code to run it. So this is an example of rendering out 8-directional movement, bringing that into Bevy, and then using a state machine actually to power that. And then the other example is the Hades example here, which I don't know that I've pushed up everything that you would need to actually run this. It's also not done yet, so it can't go into a tutorial yet. But the code is all up on GitHub. It is not the way that I'm working on it right here is in a completely separate repo though. So I don't know. We don't have any way to like place things into tiled, like place the player, do we? I have that in LDTK. Terrain fill, random mode, objects, tiles, wands. Yeah, I don't know that we have anything but the actual tiles. Mobile game, this is not mobile. I guess I could try to run it on mobile. That could be fun. Could Bevy be in the future a possible solution to simulate interior designs? I don't know what you mean by simulate, but yeah, I could see that being used in architecture, right? I think there's already people doing like simulation that is much more intensive. Foresight Spatial Labs, I want to say. Is this their website? Yeah, okay. So Foresight Spatial Labs does a bunch of like CAD-like stuff. And I think that the stuff they do with Bevy is more intensive than like just a building interior. And then there's to build a home, which I don't think that I'm going to find by searching for it like this. I think it's somewhere in here. Yeah, there we go. So this is kind of like a Sims kind of thing, is the way that I would phrase it. But yeah, you could definitely do that. There's also people doing like ray tracing and ray marching inside of Bevy for rendering different things like that. So it depends on what you mean by simulation. But the general answer is yes, could be great. But you got to build it. Rust doesn't have a junk collector. It uses manual memory management. Have a great day. Time to get going. Cool. Later. Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like it's manual memory management. I'm never calling malloc myself, you know, like I'm never allocating memory myself. So calling it manual memory management, I think does it a disservice. But I do get what you're saying, for sure. Is there Ray-T? I don't know what Ray-T is. I I don't think we have, there's storage here and the transform. So we don't really have anything else. We've got the map handle. We could get the map itself. Tile map render settings, chunk size 3:1. So when we update, I called it debug, right? Debug tile map. We could go tile maps. I think it's a component, right? Tiled map bundle is going to have a tiled map. The tiled map is going to be the thing that we created over here. So that's going to have this. This is what we're looking for. Need to close these asset folders. And then here we have our debug. So we're going to query for, actually this is going to be assets. I always forget whether it's asset or assets, but it's going to be assets, res, tiled map. And then we're going to query for what do we query for? I guess we just iterate over this. We only have one of them. We don't need to query for it. You can just use the ECS and build whatever module you need. So yes, but I believe it misses the point to ask if Bevy can do design. Not gonna lie, like no offense, but to like change your perspective. Not sure what that means. Maybe I missed something. Ray tracing in Bevy. What about it? There isn't like built-in ray tracing, if that's what you're asking. I guess like if you're looking for like Blender style cycles renderer, that doesn't exist in Bevy. If you're looking for the ability to do like ray casting, that does. It's res assets. Thank you. I'm blanking right now. You know, sometimes for map in tile maps .iter. This should be only one. So I'm just going to debug it out for a second. WGPU emission shaders. What about them? We can't actually debug that map out. Because I didn't implement debug. Where is tiled map defined? Somewhere at the top, right? Tiled map. Asset, textures. So we get map, we get textures, and we get image offsets. So let's do tiled.map. We'll keep this over here for a second. And then map.map doesn't implement debug either, right? Unknown field. What do we have here? Asset ID, haha. ID map, map.map. Shared reference, fine. Okay, so this is our map. We've got a bunch of tile data. We've got the source for the sprites, the width, the height. So that's all very useful stuff. Properties collision. Tile data. Hang on. Did we just find the thing? Tile data. Image properties collision. Raw data referring to a map object layer or tile collision data. I don't think I've ever seen this before. Returns the data belonging to objects contained within the layer in the order they were declared in the TMX file. Okay, that's cool. 3D light emissions on web GPU and ray tracing calculations on the GPU from the web. Yes, but what about them? Bevy's getting a lot of like really significant 3D rendering improvements this cycle, by the way, is something that's worth pointing out. There's a whole lot going in. So 0.14 is going to be like a huge release for lighting and skyboxes and, you know, pre-baked stuff and things like that. Okay, so this is object layer data. That's probably how we want to get that information in. Is that a thing that we should be able to do in Tiled? Oh, there's literally a tile collision editor in Tiled. Okay, that's actually almost certainly what we want. That is not in the menu here, which is unfortunate. Terrain information, tile collision editor, the rectangle circle in the toolbar, that does not exist. I do not know which button they want me to click. Maybe it's over here somewhere. Make this bigger. Tile sets. Sample. Show hide layers, duplicate, new layer. I'm so lost in this UI, honestly. Console, add property. Show tile collision shapes. That's cool. Okay, so we can see tile collision shapes. If we get tile collision data for free, that is very good for us. This is what I wanted earlier, but I didn't know how to do it. Okay. We still need to get whatever this is. I guess I need to go into the tile set itself. How do I get into the tile set? History, template, tile stamps, template editor, edit tile set. There we go. Okay, we're in. We've made it. Are there some good books related to Bevy for beginners, for React developers that have not done such things before? Not really. I do think that documentation in particular, or like not documentation specifically, but pedagogical material, is kind of lacking. The place that I would point you is these Bevy examples. So if you go to the Bevy GitHub repo and you go to the examples folder in the Bevy GitHub repo, that has a whole bunch of different applications and usages of different features and things like that. And that's where I would start personally. Window manager is Yabai, which I don't know that that's how you pronounce that. But it's this, it's Yabai. It's wonderful. I've been using it for years at this point. Couldn't live without it. How do you get a camera that sees a certain entity? I know that each entity has view visibility, but you can't get a camera that can see it. Maybe you can somehow get all entities the camera sees. I think you can get all entities the camera sees. I don't know the name of that function off the top of my head, but I feel like I was just looking at that the other day. Working in isometric 2D creates optical illusions. Yes, 100%. There's the unofficial Bevy cheat book, but it's not a tutorial series. One thing that was hard about Bevy was the documentation. Yeah, and the documentation is part of the reason that I make videos on it and do things like this. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in. If they are deeper questions, I might make a video about them. If they're light questions, then I can just answer them. Okay, so collision data. So we need to be here. And we need to do something. So it's going to be this, right? So I guess it's going to be what? Rectangle for, let's do, what are we going to do? Let's do this thing. This is the thing that we're trying to get. So rectangle. I don't know if it's going to be harder if we do that. So I'm going to do this and do some, this is just going to be really silly. But what I'm looking for is this collision data to show up. So I'm probably going to want to filter down this log output to find that collision data. I think this is in tiles, right? Tile set, tiles. Is this a vec? Where are we in this? Tile sets. So we're going to have to iterate over these. So map.map.tile sets, tile sets. That gives us the iterator that we need. We are going to iterate over this for set in this. So let me make this a little bit bigger. It might already be an iterator. Map.map, the tile sets.iter. Cool. This set is going to be an arc tile set. Set.tiles, I think, is what we're going to end up with. Tile count tiles. For tile in tiles. And this is going to be a U32 and a tile. I'm going to call this, I don't know, tile ID and tile. And I'm going to debug tile, but I only want to debug tile if, so if tile dot collision is some, then I want to debug tile. And I don't know that this implements debug, honestly. Maybe we just need the semicolon. So we should get a one tile output now that it has collision on it. And I think we do. Unless I'm still logging out everything. Let's do tile dot collision probability, properties, animation. Let's do collision. some object layer, objects, object ID. We get an X and a Y position. That looks like the data we actually need for the collider. And we get the shape. That's actually, I think, exactly what we need. I found the quick start guide, the unofficial cheat book, the examples and the reference do help, quite helpful and well done. Yes. Also, the Discord is extremely helpful. Like if you have a question, searching that information in the Discord for Bevy is so useful because there's people who probably have run into the thing that you're running into. I hope that whoever decided to put well, I'm glad you found it. Okay, so we have the data. Theoretically, there's multiple colliders. I don't like the idea of not having access to the entity to put the colliders on. That's really, like, my overriding concern is that I want the colliders attached to the entities that the chunking of the tile map is using. The Sims has 4 different isometric perspectives. Oh, because it has different camera angles. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Actually, like, rendering out multiple camera angles didn't turn out to be that difficult. It's like a consuming process in the sense that if you don't know how Blender works or you don't know how to script it, then you need to set up, like, you know, 8 cameras or whatever. But it hasn't been that terrible. So is this an Enon? This is a rect. I think I'm just going to start with the rect for now. And I'm going to modify it in the future. So we've got an X and a Y position and a rectangle for this tile. Do we have access to that information when we're building this? We have the position, the color, the old position, whether it's visible or not. Oop, that is not how you spell any of that. We don't have the collision object layer data. There's our layer data. Do we think the layer is actually that, though? I could just look at the type here. Finite tile layer. Finite tile layer is not the same as the data that we already have. So finite tile layer is what? Let's keep tile data around. And this is finite tile layer. Is that what I called it? And then we can get tile data, it looks like. Which will give us the layer tile data. That is only the flips, though. So that's not actually the collision data that we wanted. Yada yada. Layer tile. Layer tile doesn't have any of the data on it, I don't think. Is tile data a component? No, it's not a component and it's not a resource. So I think again, this is going to cause me a little bit of, I need to read this code later. Tile map grid size, yada yada, tile storage, layer entity, get tile data. This is probably relevant. Texture, position. I think I'm running the other one all the time, aren't I? So it probably just blows our current stuff away. So let me get rid of this for a second. Because I would love to, so the thought process here is I would love the collision information to come from the level editor, right? And I would love to do the collision setup inside of either the Bevy ECS tiled crate or very close to that. The layer tile data doesn't have the information we need. Which is really interesting. It's interesting that the data is supposed to be there, but we aren't necessarily getting it in any of the locations I would have expected it. I'm sure that means that I just haven't seen the place that it is yet, but tile position. But we could theoretically take our collider here, right? And this is not the long-term solution, just to be clear, but it is a temporary sort of guess, if that makes sense. So tile.collision gives us the X, Y, and Z, right? So dot if let some tile or some collision, maybe collider, let's call it collider, equals tile collision, then we do this. And if we do this, why is that? Okay. So then we have collider. Collider is object layer data. Collider dot not color. Collider dot object data is really what we need. Collider dot object data, which is a vec. Hello, second channel. How are you? Are the collisions set up on the edge part of the grid square and not the whole grid square? The collisions are actually set up however you want them. They are not even constrained, as far as I can tell. So we have a bunch of floor tiles here, right? And theoretically, I could add a collider that is a rectangle that is in the shape of this floor tile. Right now, I'm trying to put it on this like little square that's in the center of a floor tile, just as a test, which is why I didn't use like an exotic shape or anything. I'm just using a rectangle that doesn't fit exactly. I just want to see if we can get the .next.unwrap, I think that shouldn't crash. I just want to get the data in and see if we can make it into something that shows up. So collider.rectangle is going to be data dot. I'm going to have to match on this, aren't I? There's going to be a shape. So match data.shape. And this is all of our options. Most of these are not going to get hit currently. Only rect is going to get hit. So we can do collider rectangle. Oh, if I don't auto format everything. So rectangle data.shape dot. Oh, I don't need data.shape. I need width and height here. And collider.rectangle. And we are seeing an issue on rectangle, which needs F32s and not references to F32s, which we can totally deal with. I think I'm probably never going to use this text. But what we have here now is a spawned in collider that is disconnected from our tile entity entirely. I'm going to take tile position off here, and it's just going to be a spatial bundle with the collider. So theoretically, this should spawn in, when we start the level, a collider in the right spot, if we've done everything correctly. And I don't know that we have. That is really, really, really sluggish, which makes me think that I'm spawning this in a loop. Am I in? I am in a loop. That's not what I want. What is this? That run. I feel like there's a run once. And I don't use run once or something like that very often. Input time. Run once. Run if run once. I mean, it's not the probably best solution, but this is you know, demo code, if that makes sense. This is code that I just want to write. I want it to work. And then theoretically, there should be a collider somewhere. Let's debug out the location. Not this. That's not what I want. I want X and Y. I want data to get logged out. Let's debug data. And let's make sure that we set up the debug plugin, physics debug plugin, physics plugin. Actually, I think we need a feature. Now that I think about it, Bevy XPBD 2D. I thought the debug feature was enabled by default. It is, it looks like. Plugin added separately. It's possible that this is overlaying over the top of our tile map and I'm not seeing it. Or under our tile map is what I meant. But we do have that log now. Loading tile, loading tile. I feel like we're never getting to that. Does it run too soon? I think that might be it. So let's do debug tile map on a different stage. So we're going to take this. We're going to add systems. I'm going to do it in post update because I know that that's not post update. We're going to do post startup because I know that we're doing our other stuff in startup. Actually, now that I think about it, I want, see, we're doing on enter app state in game. We already have that, so we can do this instead. We'll put debug tile map here, which runs after startup, and we'll just chain these together. So we're just setting up a very quick and simple and dirty startup. System runs, spawns a bunch of stuff. Debug tile map can then access those things. How do you find the X coordinates of each pixel that makes up the sprite image? I'm not sure what you're asking. Okay, so this should be at 83,420. I feel like that puts it up. I feel like that means it's going to be up here somewhere. Yeah. So it does move it. The y-axis needs to be inverted because that's the way. So Tiled's y-axis is probably the other direction compared to Bevy's. So where are we on the insert? Here's the insert. And then instead of data.y, it's negative. So now we should be able to go south, and then that's here. That's still in the wrong spot for us. So very curious about that. This doesn't need to be flipped in both directions. It is too far down for the y-axis as well. But we are getting the data, which is significantly better than we were before. So this is supposed to be on that square, and it's about 1 square off. Why the chain? The chain enables ordering. So chain will take any tuple of systems, and it will run the first one, then the second, then the third, then the fourth. By default, if you don't have dot chain, it'll run them all in parallel or concurrently, or, you know, not necessarily in the same order every time. As most of the times it doesn't matter. And there's a bunch of times when Bevy can infer it. But in this case, I'm debugging something and I want to just ensure that it happens after. Like if you were overhead, so you could mark out the pixel of the image for a collision. Not sure exactly what you're asking. You can find the X coordinates of the images that are on screen, right? There's a tile position. There's offsets associated with a tile map. There's like a transform you can get from that. You could then do some analysis of the data. What we are trying to do is set up our own collider that overlays on top of these images so that we can do visual collider development, right? Because what I want to be able to do is click on this box and then draw a rectangle from this corner to that corner and have it be a diamond and have that work inside of Bevy. Because we aren't actually going to need this whole thing to have collision anyway. It's only the bottom because it's 2D isometric. So what I'm doing right now is I'm taking this tile, I've placed a rectangle on it. And my question is, why is the transform data that we're getting here not match the position on screen? So it's 83,420 for the center of the collider, and then it's 87 and 54 for the width and the height. I don't think we have offsets, but I know that offsets exist. So let me debug these offsets and make sure that we actually aren't just ignoring offsets completely. Ooh, there is an offset there. That's interesting. Interesting. Negative 78 offset. That is the tile grid for the walls. That makes sense. Okay, so the thing I just realized is that if we were talking about this earlier, right? So the grid for the floor is this isometric grid. The grid for, or not the second, not the floor, but the floor, the second floor, and then the walls compared to the second floor is a different grid. So it needs to be offset. And that's this offset. So that happens to be negative 78. So I think instead of doing it correctly, because I'm looking for a like kind of a win here, right? I'm going to do minus 78. I don't actually know. I didn't check the math, so it might be that we need to add this. I think we need to add this, actually, now that I think about it. Because we need it to come back up towards us. And hopefully this will put us on the right Y position for this tile. It's better. It's closer. I think there's still an offset. Oh, you know what? Actually, I wonder if the position is not the center. So in Bevy, everything is anchored to the center point in general. It's not a strict rule, but in general, you're anchored to the center point. I think that these coordinates use top left or bottom right. I think it uses bottom right. So I think actually we have our square in kind of the right place right now. But what we really need is the width and the height for this shape, which means let me take this and I'm going to do something really silly because we're just kind of debugging here, just kind of like hacking around. So I'm going to put this spatial bundle in here with this and return a tuple. And then I'm going to take the width and the height here because these are important. And I'm going to, am I going to subtract them? I think I'm going to add them. I think the X index is going to get subtracted here and the Y index is going to get added. And we're basically doing like an ad hoc, the sneeze into the mic. Ah! Nope, we're good. Okay. It's going to be width over 2, height over 2. Because we need to recenter it effectively. And I think that now that I think about how the tiled stuff is set up. I think it's set up for bottom right. So here's our collider. Let me pull this up. It only took me 3 hours to get a single collider. Half width height. Yes. So half width height. So what is the actual issue we were seeing? We're seeing this collider, and it was shifted half down, half over, right? What does that mean? That means that because we're using the center as the anchor point for the colliders, that the positional information from tiled was not meant for something to be centered at the anchor. So we are doing width over 2, height over 2 to move it to the left and up by half the width and height, which I think means that these positions are anchored to the bottom right. So I think this bottom right corner right here is where the XY position for the collision information points to, right? Like this XY is the bottom right of the thing. We'll turn this into a more comprehensive like transform, because we do need to go from tiled to Bevy quite a bit. So we can create this collider rectangle from that information. But I do want to do like more stuff in here, right? So we can do triangles as well. I think for what? Polyline, point, text, polygon. I think the triangle over here must be a polyline. No, that's a polygon. That's a template. Ellipse, point. In any case, Bevy XPBD has a bunch of these colliders. So what did we say there was? Ellipse, polyline, polygon. Where's ellipse? So we have ellipse here. We could do ellipses very easily. For things that are not that, we have regular polygons, which is probably what it meant. We also have rectangles, and then we also have polylines. The only thing that I need to check for the polylines is to make sure that the indexes that are defined in tiled match up with how we're going to do this. Seeing you try to figure this out, I makes me wonder how they made The Sims. Well, the people who made The Sims had much more experience than I do, if I'm being honest. They also, like, how many Sims games are there? Also, like, games are just huge, complicated things. Like, no joke. There are so many Sims games. Oh, wow. So what are they on? Sims 4 right now with a bunch of expansions? And then Sims was made in 2000. It was actually a follow-up to SimCity. That's cool. I didn't actually know that. But yeah, if you look at this image compared to, what was it? To Build a Home. Right? If you look at the images that are here, right, for To Build a Home, and you look at this, those look like the same thing to me. Right? Like they're different textures, different whatever, different images. But yeah, I don't know. I just found that interesting. And this game is Sims inspired, so that makes sense. Yeah, okay. So we have completed the objective of the stream. We got a collider on here. The like Z indexing is something I still need to debug. The collider is in the right spot. I'm going to do some work to fill out a bunch of these. I don't know that I'm going to fill out all of these, but I'm going to fill out a bunch of these. I am starting to feel pretty hungry, so I think I'm going to go have, lunch. But thanks for hanging out, everyone. And I do this every week, every Saturday morning. So if you want to hang out, come back Saturday morning. And I'll see you then. Other than that, This Week in Bevy comes out on Monday. And I've got some other stuff that I'm working on that'll hopefully come out over the next 2 weeks. Have a great rest of your day, y'all. And I will catch you.